Thank you so much, Wani. That was a lovely introduction. I'm so pleased to be here today, and I'm going to be just sharing a few slides with you regarding things that I've noticed during Innovation's journey throughout my 25, almost 30 years now doing technology transfer and working with startups out of academic institutions, just so people know some of the context for what I'm going to be speaking about. My background is in technology transfer, mainly out of Stanford University. But for the last 6 years, I've been at Osage University Partners, which is a venture capital firm that invests in startups out of academic institutions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. I always share these first in non-presenter mode, just so I make sure that they get up okay. Hopefully you guys are seeing the correct screen right now. But I'm going to start off talking about startups in general, just because that's kind of been my expertise for quite a while now. And why do startups matter? Well, startups, as you note here, are names that we recognize now as major companies, but these were all at one point the gleam in someone's eye. They were not just, excuse me, they were not always big companies. These were originally small companies started from certain ideas out of academic institutions. Many of these actually come from academic institutions you know well. A few of these come from my former institution, Stanford University, one of those being Google, which started out very small. And the researchers saw the potential. There were not a lot of others who even had an idea of what the potential was, but they did, and they were able to transform that into the kind of behemoth, the very large company that it is today. And universities are just catalysts for startup. These days, universities in the United States are accounting for over 1,200 new startups per year, according to Autumn. So why do we commercialize innovations out of academic institutions? The main reason, and this is one of the 2 points I'm hoping you take out of my keynote today, is impact. Impact, 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 impact. Just like real estate has location, about innovation, it's impact. Seeing something happen with the innovations that come out of academic institutions, and then being able to have an impact, be it on humankind, be it on the world, be it on animals, be it in small scale, local impact versus larger impact. But seeing something actually happen with the basic research that happens at the institution. And so we'll talk more about impact in just a bit, but I think one of the main, areas that we all know quite well right now is the impact that the COVID vaccines have had. The technologies that enabled those vaccines were found at academic research institutions and other types of research areas that really were able to get us to the point where we are in fighting this pandemic today. Other reasons to commercialize inventions, obviously funding. Funding makes the academic institutions go around. And so seeing the possibility that more funding coming in can sustain inventions, help them go along to further places, that's another reason people are commercializing their inventions. There may be local economic factors as well, such as creating jobs. Startups are a terrific driver for creating jobs and building up a community around what's being innovated. A lot of researchers want to do this because they want to see their research translated. They don't want it just to get to a certain point in their lab and then nothing to happen with it. So that's another important point. The viral effect of seeing something happen with your innovation, making it into a larger company or a startup or a medium-sized company, seeing it out on the market or somehow helping people of the world, that's something that other people see and they say, hey, I'd like for what I'm working on potentially to do that as well. So that viral nature of these benefits is really important as well. So when I started at Stanford, people didn't necessarily always think about these benefits of commercialization. And there sometimes was an attitude, well, I'm in this wonderful academic and I really want to stay in this academic space. I don't want to worry about the commercial aspects of innovation. I think that has really evolved over the last 20, 25 years. where people do want to see something happen with their innovations and making that impact that I talked about as well. Now, Stanford, people often say, oh, Stanford, well, that's easy for you. You're in Silicon Valley, there are all these things around you. Well, Stanford started out as a farm. Everything around here were ranches, orchards, etc. But it took people with innovative ideas to want to keep people and actually help them build businesses around here to make that happen. And I'm happy to talk about that more later, but I only have a short time right now to get through my different points. But point number one I'd like people to take away is part of the reason that people are doing this is to make an impact. Now, if you're going to be doing a startup, obviously you're going to need funding for those startups. And so this is just a graphic we like to use that shows kind of the different levels, perhaps, of funding sources for startup companies. As academics, most people are very familiar with this first part on grants. These are often federal grants, sometimes they're state or local or other types of grants. But as you're going along the funding journey, there are more and more translational types of grants that people can attain, either from the government or from other areas. When they first start their startup, one of the first places people are going to go is to their friends and family to get more money in. They may look at venture philanthropy as well. Angels and accelerators have just proliferated over the last 10, 20 years to help startups get to those next steps and not only offer funding, but also access to space and people to help them. There's other types of funding as well, but obviously what I work in is venture capital, and not all startups should necessarily seek venture capital funding. Really, you're looking for venture capital when you're trying to really create a big company with a lot of growth associated with it. And I just use this next graphic to show this, that the likelihood of getting funded by a VC is not always that great. So people really should be looking at what are the types of sources of funding that they can need for a startup. And is it really needed to have venture capital? And I'm always happy to talk more about venture capital specifically, since that's what I work in. But my point on this is obviously funding is a really important factor for getting anything forward, including startups. But it's not the only thing you need to think about in taking this innovation journey. So the innovation journey takes another huge factor, which is people. And the next couple of slides that I'm going to have are going to illustrate this point. So these slides are taken from an article written, How Do Venture Capitalists Make Decisions?, where they went out and got information from hundreds of venture capitalists and asked them, what is a factor that actually contributes to a successful investment? So something that actually does well for the venture capitalists, but that also indicates eventually, potentially, it does well for the company, does well for the world if they're putting out products to help humankind in the world. As you can see here, factors contributing to successful investments, the biggest one that they often said was team. Now in the life sciences, they said it was also team, but then the second runner-up behind that was the technology behind it. So that was a really important second part in life sciences with regards to making something successful. They also asked the counter question to that: what contributed to a failed investment for their portfolio? And in that case, also, it was the team. For life sciences, team was runner up, but the first thing was technology. And so things making it from that bench to the company didn't always translate over. So the technology is important, the team's important. And we really focus on this at Osage University Partners about the team. It's the number one thing that we look at when we're looking at a possible investment. And when you're looking at innovations out of academic institutions, you're not just looking at the science, but who is taking this forward? Who's going to play a role in this? And so I encourage people to think, obviously the scientist is incredibly important to this, but also who are you going to be bringing to the table to help this innovation along? And so my second main point takeaway that I'm hoping that you have from this keynote, the first one again was impact. The second one is about people and the people who are helping this innovation journey. You need champions and advisors and mentors to help these innovations along. And champions and advisors and mentors are not necessarily all the same people. People have different skill sets. Those people who are new to the innovation journey, so faculty, grad students, postdocs, et cetera, researchers who are doing this for the first time, they don't always know what it is that they don't know. And so they need people to help them along that journey. Throwing money at the issue doesn't always work. That's not going to be the only thing that's going to be taking something forward. You need people and experts to help that along. And once you have some successes, as at least this is how it worked for us at Stanford, is it helped create this Me Too in a very positive context environment where people saw other people being successful with having their innovations translated out of their labs, that they said, hey, how can I do that as well? So scouting out your advisors, work with both local and non-local folks. I think that one thing that the pandemic has taught us over the past year and a half, it's going to be on 2 years now, is that people don't have to be necessarily right where you are in order to help. So look for alumni, look for domain experts, go out and contact companies, say, hey, we're doing something in this area. We have people who are doing this. Would you want to work with us on that? Look for people who are retired, who are looking to give back, and who are experts in those areas as well. And I know I've already exhausted my 10 minutes, but I want to thank everyone for having me. I look forward to discussion later and having some questions as well. Thank you.